The logical conundrum. Captain, that course of action is not logical. Lieutenant Savick stood ramrod straight on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, one eyebrow raised in what James T. Kirk had come to recognize as her signature expression of Vulcan disapproval. He fought the urge to sigh. "Lieutenant, sometimes the logical approach isn't the best approach," Kirk replied, settling more comfortably into the captain's chair, especially when dealing with Klingons. "I fail to see how deliberately antagonizing a Klingon warbird by entering the neutral zone constitutes anything but an illogical risk," Savick countered, her tone perfectly even. From his science station, Commander Spock appeared intensely focused on his sensor readings. Only Kirk, who had known him for years, could detect the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Mr. Sulu, proceed with our course," Kirk ordered, ignoring Savick's logical protest. "Sometimes you have to poke the bear to understand its intentions." "Captain," Savick interjected again, "I must point out that we are not dealing with Earth bears, but with Klingon warriors, and your metaphor is not logical." "Yes, I gathered that, Lieutenant." Kirk drummed his fingers on the armrest. "Note your objection in the log." As the Enterprise glided toward the neutral zone, Kirk noticed Spock's shoulders quivering almost imperceptibly. The Vulcan was enjoying this far too much. 3 hours later found Kirk, Spock, and Savick materialized on an uncharted planetoid, having narrowly escaped the Klingon vessel by hiding in a nearby asteroid field. "Captain, our presence here is—" "Let me guess," Kirk interrupted, brushing dust from his uniform. "Not logical?" "Precisely," Savick confirmed, seemingly immune to his sarcasm. "We have beamed down to an unexplored planetoid without proper reconnaissance, environmental analysis, or security personnel. The probability of encountering hostile elements is approximately 72.3%. Kirk noticed Spock lifting his tricorder, ostensibly to scan the surroundings, but unmistakably using the device to shield his face. "Sometimes you have to trust your gut, Lieutenant," Kirk said, patting his stomach. "Mine's gotten me out of trouble more times than I can count. Relying on intestinal sensations as a decision-making framework is not logical." "Yes, I'm aware." Kirk strode forward, phaser drawn. "Spock, any life signs?" Spock cleared his throat before answering. "None within our immediate vicinity, Captain. However, I am detecting unusual energy readings approximately 2 kilometers north." "Then north we go," Kirk declared, setting off with determination. "Captain," Savick hurried after him, "without knowing the source of those readings, proceeding directly toward them is—" "An adventure, Lieutenant! An adventure!" Kirk called over his shoulder. Behind them both, Spock followed at a measured pace, his eyes twinkling with what could only be described as Vulcan amusement. The energy readings led them to a cave entrance glowing with an eerie blue light. "Fascinating," Spock remarked, studying his tricorder. Kirk pulled out his communicator. "Kirk to Enterprise." Only static answered. "Something's interfering with our communications," he noted, snapping the device closed. "Captain," Savick began. "Entering an unknown subterranean structure with unknown energy signatures and no communication with the ship is not logical," Kirk finished for her. "But what if those energy readings are exactly what we need to outmaneuver the Klingons? Sometimes, Lieutenant, you have to leap before you look." "That statement contradicts every principle of scientific exploration and Starfleet safety protocols," Savick replied. Kirk could have sworn he heard Spock make a noise suspiciously like a suppressed chuckle. "Mr. Spock, your thoughts?" Kirk asked, turning to his old friend. Spock composed his features instantly. "The readings are intriguing, Captain. However, Lieutenant Savick's concerns are not without merit." "See?" Savick said. "However," Spock continued, "there have been numerous occasions where the captain's—" Unconventional methods have yielded successful outcomes against statistically unfavorable odds. Kirk grinned triumphantly. Thank you, Mr. Spock. That was not an endorsement, merely an observation, Spock clarified, though Kirk didn't miss the subtle gleam in his eye. Well, I'm going in, Kirk declared. You two can wait here if you prefer. That would be the logical choice, Savick stated. As science officer, I should accompany you to analyze the phenomenon, Spock said. And as second officer present, I cannot allow both senior officers to endanger themselves simultaneously, Savick countered. It is not logical, yes, Kirk sighed. But it's happening anyway. Come on. Inside the cave, they discovered a crystalline structure pulsing with blue energy. Remarkable, Spock murmured, taking readings. Kirk approached the crystal formation, hand outstretched. Captain! Savick's voice was sharp. Touching an unknown energy source without protective equipment is— Sometimes you have to trust your instincts, Lieutenant, Kirk interrupted, reaching for the largest crystal. The moment his fingers made contact, the cave illuminated with brilliant light. When it faded, they found themselves back on the Enterprise bridge. Captain, Uhura exclaimed, you've been gone for hours. The Klingons withdrew after you disappeared? Kirk straightened his uniform with a satisfied smile. Sometimes the unexpected approach works best. Wouldn't you agree, Lieutenant Savick? Savick opened her mouth, undoubtedly to explain why his actions had been illogical, when Spock stepped forward. Captain, while your methods continue to defy conventional logic, Spock said, his eyes betraying his inner amusement, I cannot argue with your results. Thank you, Mr. Spock, Kirk replied, settling back into his captain's chair. However, Savick began, the successful outcome does not retroactively justify the illogical decision-making process that— As she continued her logical critique, Kirk caught Spock's eye. The science officer raised an eyebrow and the corner of his mouth twitched upward in what, for a Vulcan, was practically uproarious laughter. Kirk smiled. Some things in the universe were perfectly predictable. Klingon aggression, Scotty's love for the Enterprise's engines, and apparently, Lieutenant Savick's unwavering commitment to logic in the face of Kirk's intuitive command style. And Spock's silent enjoyment of it all? Well, that was just the icing on the cake. Lieutenant, Kirk interrupted her ongoing analysis, set course for Starbase 12. I believe we've had enough logical discussions for one day. Aye, Captain, she replied, adding under her breath, though I maintain that your approach was not logical. The entire bridge crew finished in unison. Even Spock couldn't contain a small, distinctly un-Vulcan smile.